Is QNT a good investment? I think so, and let me explain why. Reason number one, it is because I believe that the Quant network is extremely revolutionary. However, before I continue on any further, I want to tell everyone what the Quant network is actually all about. And when it comes to the Quant network, it's made up of two things, the Overledger OS and the Overledger network. And I first want to explain what the Overledger OS is. The Overledger OS is not a blockchain. It instead sits on top of multiple blockchains and allows for individuals and institutions to build multi-chain applications. And some of you may be wondering, what is a multi-chain application? A multi-chain application is an application that is built on top of multiple blockchains instead of just one. And an example of a multi-chain application is this. So let's say an individual or institution wants to build an application using the Overledger OS. They can, for example, build an application that takes advantage of the speed of the Stellar blockchain while at the same time taking advantage of the security of the Bitcoin blockchain. Hence the name multi-chain applications. There are multiple blockchains. With the Overledger OS, people don't have to be stuck building an application on just a singular blockchain. That is just how special the Overledger OS is. And the Overledger OS has amazing and beneficial qualities. For example, individuals and institutions can start using blockchain with just 3 lines of code. It's so simple. It's essentially a plug and play deal. And on top of that, they have choice, interoperability, flexibility, and not being locked in. They also avoid buying additional infrastructure. And also on top of that, the benefits include being able to comply to security and regulation and being able to use existing technical skills and resources. And this all can be started in less than 8 minutes. I mean, this is absolutely mind-blowing in my opinion. This is crazy. The Overledger OS is not only revolutionary, but it's also very simple to use. And keep in mind, when institutions want to adopt new technology, they don't want to adopt something that's very difficult to use, overly complicated. They don't want any of that whatsoever. When institutions want to adopt new technology, they want something that's easy, simple to use, and very practical. And the Overledger OS allows for that to happen. It's very easy to use, and it's also very amazing. And I believe that the future of cryptos will be institutional adoption. Institutions, they have the most capital, they have the most resources, and they have the volume to accommodate growth at a much larger scale. And the fact that the Overledger OS is facilitating institutional adoption, I think is just so wonderful. And that right there is what the Overledger OS is all about. And now that you've all heard about the Overledger OS, I now want to talk about the Overledger network. And the Overledger network is made up of the Overledger OS users. And users of the Overledger OS on the Overledger network can share their data, their apps, and resources and monetize them. That is what the Quant network is all about. It's made up of the Overledger OS and the Overledger network. And I think with all of that being said, I think it's fair to assume that the Quant network is just absolutely extraordinary. I mean, it's out of this world. It's fantastic. And when it comes to the second reason as to why I believe that QNT is an amazing investment, it is because of QRC 721, which by the way is Quant's very own NFT standard. And the reason why I believe that QRC 721 is so special is because most NFTs nowadays are minted using Ethereum's ERC 721 token standard. And by the way, when it comes to ERC 721, it has a lot of issues. It has very big security problems. If we take a look at this, unless adequately designed, ERC 721 smart contracts have been subject to hacks. Fraudsters as well have found a myriad of ways to steal digital wallet credentials and gain access to administrative controls, costing the industry nearly $87 million in 2022. I mean, that is absolutely insane. Ethereum's ERC 721, it's just not that secure. And also on top of that, developers must know Solidity, a programming language for Ethereum to execute robust, well-designed ERC 721 tokens and ensure that the code is validated and credentialed. And this right here, it's just too complicated in my opinion. It doesn't have to be that hard. And last but not least, I want to talk about what I believe is the greatest weakness when it comes to ERC 721. And it is how ERC 721 tokens lack interoperability and are unable to interact seamlessly with blockchains other than Ethereum. This restriction can potentially limit the transactions of digital assets on the metaverse. And all of this is very alarming, especially when you consider how McKinsey predicts that the metaverse industry can be worth up to $5 trillion by 2030. And with ERC 721, it can potentially limit transactions on an industry that can potentially be worth $5 trillion in the future, and that is totally not acceptable in my opinion. With QRC 721, Quant has essentially found a solution for NFTs on the metaverse, something that, by the way, again, right, can be worth up to $5 trillion in the future, and that is absolutely mind-blowing. And if we are just solely talking about NFTs and the future potential growth of NFTs, not including the metaverse, the NFT market is projected to be worth over $211 billion by 2030. The NFT market has insane potential. You know, a lot of people out there, they like to think that Bored Apes are the peak of NFTs. And also, a lot of people out there, they like to think that Mutant Apes are the peak of NFTs. But I think that is completely not the case whatsoever. Yes, NFTs are down right now, but I believe they are just getting started. What we saw of NFTs back in 2021, I think is nowhere near what it can truly reach in the future. The potential of NFTs is insane. And the fact that Quant has their very own NFT standard, I think is just absolutely amazing, because let's face it, right? It's a lot better than Ethereum's ERC 721. Yes, a lot of people use Ethereum's NFT token standard, but it's just not as good as Quant's. And the third reason as to why I believe QNT is an amazing investment is because of its use case. I mean, if we take a look at this, the QNT token can be used in a myriad of ways. First of all, the QNT token can be used for enterprise licenses. QNT tokens must be provided to Quant Network in exchange for an annual income. Price of the access will be fixed in fiat, and the number of tokens needed will vary depending on the price of QNT. Enterprise license fees will be determined on the basis of number of users, number of employees, application type, and volume of transactions. Number two, the QNT token can be used for developer licenses. Developers will be able to obtain an annual license to develop applications on Overledger through the purchase of QNT tokens equivalent to a fixed fiat amount. The developer wallet will be used to access the platform for the license period, and as well as develop, sign, and publish applications. Number three, the QNT token can be used for platform fees. In addition to license fees, a platform fee calculated as a percentage of the license fee in QNT will be payable by all users and developers. Number four, the QNT token can be used for identity and account. A minimum QNT holding is put in place for every participant of the Overledger ecosystem. The wallet storing QNT is your identity, the private key is your password, and with the license fee, you are assigned a BPI key. Number five, the QNT token can be used for transaction processing. QNT tokens are used to validate, sign, and encrypt every transaction that flows through Overledger. Every enterprise client, developer, user, and application validates each transaction using their QNT linked to their ID and account. No transaction can flow through Overledger without being securely validated by QNT tokens. Number six, the QNT token can be used for application users. Users will need to hold QNT tokens to be able to run multi-chain applications. The license key will expire annually and must be renewed with more QNT tokens. Users will need to deposit an amount of QNT that will be used to pay to gateways for processing. Users also deposit QNT tokens to cover the cost of any penalties for raising any incorrect disputes. And last but not least, number seven, the QNT token can be used for gateways and staking. To run a gateway, there is an annual fee fixed in fiat to be paid in QNT tokens. Gateways earn QNT for transaction processing. Additionally, QNT tokens can be staked to increase the capacity of the gateway. The more the gateway operator stakes in the variable deposit, the more requests they can accept, resulting in more QNT earned. And wow, right, just imagine how much use cases the QNT token has. You know, there are many tokens out there that don't really have a good use case, but when it comes to QNT, I mean, the use case is just on top of it. I mean, it's on a whole nother level. And also, when it comes to the supply of QNT, it actually has less of a supply than Bitcoin. I mean, just imagine that. There's less QNT out there in the world than Bitcoin. QNT is more rare than Bitcoin. If you think about Bitcoin, what is the use case really? It's just a store of value for the most part. There's not much use case other than that. But when it comes to QNT, it actually has a very diversified and good use case. And if I had a choice between buying Bitcoin or QNT, I am hands down choosing QNT. there's no way I would ever buy Bitcoin over QNT. I am always going to choose QNT over Bitcoin. I think QNT is just a much better pick for me. And the fourth reason as to why I believe QNT is an amazing investment is because I believe it has a lot of room to grow. In fact, I think that in the future, QNT will at least reach a market cap of $500 billion, which would mean that one QNT would be worth $34.4 thousand. And it would be around a 237x from here. And I truly do believe this will happen when it comes to QNT. I'm not saying this will happen the next bull run, but I think it will happen eventually in the future. And some people might be saying, oh, you think QNT is going to go to $34,000? Oh, are you crazy? Oh man, but I don't think I'm crazy. And the reason is because when I take into consideration just how special the QNT token is, when I take a look at its use case, when I take a look at the Overledger OS, when I take a look at just how extraordinary the Quant network is, when I take all of that into consideration, I think it really is not out of the realm of possibility for QNT to at least reach the price of $34,000 in the future. In fact, if anything, I think it's actually very realistic. And when it comes to my buying strategy, I am dollar cost averaging. And what does that mean? I am buying a set amount on a set schedule. I am buying on a consistent basis. Anytime I earn income, I straight away buy QNT. It doesn't matter what happens to the price of QNT that day. It can be pumping, it can be dumping. Doesn't matter, I keep buying anyways because I am taking a long-term approach when it comes to QNT. And by dollar cost averaging, I am slowly but surely accumulating more and more QNT and just preparing myself for the next bull run and beyond. And the reason why I say even beyond the next bull run is because I believe that QNT will be around for many, many years to come. Other cryptos out there, for the most part, you don't really know how long they're going to be around for. A lot of cryptos out there, they're based off of hype, based off of fans. But once the hype leaves, once the fans leave, that crypto is just going to disappear off into the abyss. But when it comes to QNT, the value of QNT, it's not tied to fans, it's not tied to hype, it's actually tied to fundamentals. QNT actually has an amazing use case, and that is why I believe that QNT will be around for the long haul, and that is why I am extremely bullish on QNT. I feel like I can never go wrong with QNT. I think it's the real deal. And quick disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor, and nothing I said in this video should be taken or interpreted as an invitation to buy, sell, or trade QNT. Make sure to subscribe for the latest and greatest crypto news and content. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.